Good morning once again and welcome. It's still Breakfast Extra, but these are the headlines. My name is Mazino Appeal. Now we begin with updates from Kaduna State, where the Defense Industry Corporation of Nigeria, and that's DICON, has confirmed that one staff member was killed and several others injured following an explosion at its factory on Saturday. According to a statement by DICON's public relations officer, Maria Sambo, the blast was triggered by expired raw materials stored in old bunkers previously used for weapons production. The explosion occurred at about 10 a.m. at the DICON disposal pit in the Kakuri industrial area of Kaduna South local government, as specialists were destroying expired ammonium nitrate, primer caps, propellants, and other explosive components. Gunmen have assassinated a Catholic priest, Reverend Father Matthew Eya, parish priest of St. Charles Catholic Church, Eha Ndiagu, in Nsukka local government area of Enugu State. The attack reportedly occurred on Friday evening as Father Eya was returning to his parish along the Eha Ndiagu road. Eyewitnesses say the assailants, riding on a motorcycle, intercepted his vehicle and opened fire, killing him instantly. The Catholic Diocese of Nsukka has confirmed the incident in a statement describing the killing of Father Eya as shocking and deeply tragic. Vice President Kashim Shettima will lead Nigeria's delegation to the 80th United Nations General Assembly in New York, scheduled from September 22nd to 28, 2025. The assignment follows a directive from President Bola Tinubu. Shettima is slated to deliver Nigeria's national statement on Wednesday, September 24, between 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. New York time. He will also participate in a high-level climate ambition summit convened by the UN Secretary-General, where Nigeria is expected to unveil updated climate commitments under the Paris Agreement. Additional agreements include a housing roundtable hosted by Kenya's president and several bilateral meetings. Following the UNGA, the vice president will travel to Frankfurt for consultation with Dutch bank officials before returning to Nigeria. The need to build leadership qualities in adolescent-aged girls so that they can contribute positively to the society has once again been brought to the front burner. This was during a gender conference which held in Abuja, focusing on building confidence of adolescent-age girls through the art of public speaking. Several schools in the FCT participated in the conference, which also helped to amplify the voices of the girls, bringing to fore their challenges and highlighting the need of proper mentorship for girls.
This is the RENA Shut-Up Conference 2025, the second edition. So we started last year where we hosted 40 girls to a wellness and leadership summit. So the RENA Shut-Up Conference is a girls leadership conference, annual girls leadership conference. And this year we are having 100 girls from 5 senior secondary schools, girls who are in leadership positions, I must emphasize. So this year we thought to be more inclusive, and that's why we have 50 girls with disabilities and 50 girls without disabilities. We have to start and immediately start exposing these girls to different clusters, people outside their world, people different from what they see on a daily basis.
The average girl child, depending on her experience, gets intimidated. I'll explain. It's not out of context. If an average girl child is raped, it affects her emotionally and will affect her how she stand before people and talk. Allow those girls to learn by example and have the right mentors and ensure that you're a good example, and they will be the best speakers in the world.
Since I'm here today, I can go back to my school and speak to my classmates and speak at the assembly ground without any fear. I will just start from today building up my confidence and the courage to speak in public and to come out and show the world what I have in me and not keeping them within me. So I feel like this conference meeting has enlightened me.
Catholic bishops in Nigeria have raised the alarm over what they described as the suppression of opposition voices, warning that Nigeria is gradually sliding into a one-party state. The bishops expressed this concern in a communique issued at the end of the plenary meeting of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria held in Akwa Ibom State. The communique was signed by the Archbishop of Owerri and President CBCN Lucius Ugorji and Bishop of Uromi and Secretary CBCN Donatuzogun. The bishops cautioned politicians against pushing the nation toward a one-party state, which they argue is unhealthy for democracy. Electoral authorities in Guinea have begun distributing ballot boxes and voting materials from the Ratoma City Hall in Conakry to polling stations across the country. The move comes ahead of the national constitutional referendum scheduled for Sunday. The referendum, which has drawn both domestic and international attention, is set to determine significant changes to the country's governing framework. Officials are working to ensure logistical readiness across all regions in time for the vote. Observers note heightened political tension surrounding the referendum, with opposition groups raising concerns over transparency and fairness. In more news, major European airports, including London's Heathrow, Brussels, and Berlin, faced flight cancellations and long delays after a cyber attack hit check-in systems. The attack disrupted electronic check-in and baggage drop, forcing airports to operate manually. Brussels Airport cancelled at least 10 flights and delayed 17 more, while Heathrow warned of delays at its busiest Terminal 4. Passengers reported long queues and slow processing, raising fears of missed flights. The system outage was linked to Collins Aerospace, which is working to restore services. Aviation experts warn cyber attacks on the sector have surged, making airports increasingly vulnerable targets nationwide.
On ne s'est jamais retrouvé aussitôt à l'aéroport, parce qu'on a eu l'information via un ami, et puis on a vu effectivement sur Zaventem qu'il y avait un souci. Donc on prend notre mal en patience. Bon, je peux comprendre qu'il y a un problème, mais au niveau information, c'est vraiment pas ça du tout. Donc les gens attendent, les gens ne savent pas. Donc voilà.
And that's all the news this hour. Do stay with us because conversations continue inside of Breakfast Extra. My name is Mazino Appeal. Do stand by because we have a big story coming your way.
Welcome back, and this is our first big story. The Niger State government has sparked national debate after announcing that clerics in the state must submit their sermons for approval before delivering them. Governor Mohammed Umar Bago defended the move, saying it was necessary to curb incitement, extremism, and hate speech from the pulpit. The directive, however, has drawn sharp criticism from religious leaders and rights advocates who see it as an infringement on religious freedom. Nigeria has long grappled with balancing freedom of worship, guaranteed under the Constitution, against concerns over security and social order. Proponents of Niger State's policy argue that unchecked preaching has in the past fueled division and violence.
At the heart of the issue lies a delicate tension: how to protect society from hate speech without undermining the very freedom that anchors Nigeria's democracy. Is Niger's approach a safeguard or slippery slope? To shed light on this, we're joined by Umar Dada. He's an educationist, a poet, and also author, and also Joseph Hayab, chairman of the Christian Association, Nigeria's Northern States, and the FCT. Gentlemen, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Morning.
I'm going to start by asking Mr. Umar Dada. Sir, when you first heard that clerics in Niger State would need to submit their sermons for approval, what went through your mind? Who do you believe this was referring to? Mr. Umar Dada.
It appears you're talking, but I can't hear you at all.
Oh, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, unfortunately, I don't think you can. We're going to try and fix that, but let me speak now to the chairman of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Reverend Joseph Hayab. Reverend Joseph Hayab, I'm going to ask you the same question. What were your first reactions when you heard that message from the governor's office?
Well, when I read this statement on the news, like every other person, I was worried. But part of my practice in leadership is to investigate and make inquiry. So I reached out to the chairman of CAN of Niger State in person of Bishop Bulus, and also to the vice chairman of CAN, Reverend Marcus, to know what exactly is the matter. I also called on the media assistant or the special advisor to the governor of Niger State on print media, Aisha, to get what exactly it is. Fortunately for me, a few days ago, I also met the governor one-on-one. So my understanding keeps changing with the information I have. And then the director or the director general of the Bureau of Interfaith of Niger State also shared with me their press statement. So I was worried when I heard it, but now I have a better understanding. So probably in this discussion, I'm going to be speaking from those knowledge, and I don't want to overemphasize what was not exactly in the first place.
So let's get your understanding of the situation then, please.
One, there is no bill or law in that respect in Niger State at the moment. There is nothing like that. There is not a law or a bill, because you cannot do anything that is not from a law. There was an incident in Niger of some group of preachers who, instead of preaching the word of God as contained in the glorious Quran, chose to hide under preaching to instigate, to insult, and to incite. And the government, in her wisdom, reached out to them through the Bureau of Interfaith or Bureau of Religious Affairs and demand to understand on which platform are they preaching, on which platform are they saying what they are saying. And they just realized that they have really nothing to show. And part of the conversation in that meeting was the agreement that, okay, from now henceforth, you are not going to preach. If you must preach, since you don't really clear to us which platform you belong, we must see what you want to say before you preach. So since it is not a law, it's not applicable to us as Christians, it's not applicable to us as believers, it's not applicable to our churches. That one, I'm so certain about it. So it's just addressing that particular situation. And so the governor appeared in a media forum, and it seems the story have gone out, and the media man asked him, and he affirmed that, yes, there was a conversation like that, and we told them they're not going to preach until they bring out their sermon. But I think it was presented out there wrongly, as if there's a law to stop people preaching and to give people, because I did explain to the governor, I said, look, in Christian preaching, yeah, we do prepare our sermons and write it down, but most of what we say is from inspiration. You pray, you prepare, and seek the face of God for what God wants you to tell to the people. So how do I submit that to the governor? How do I submit them to the Bureau? Or how do I submit that to a police or some committee? They are not God. For us in Kaduna, I'm from Kaduna, though the chairman of CAN in northern Nigeria will have an experience that such, during Erufai's era, such bill came, but the court of law clearly says that government have no power to regulate preaching. So with that, we didn't have much to worry, since the governor cleared that it wasn't really a bill, and this was what they wanted to address. But I think when it went to the media, it was mispresented and created some little tension. But when we got the facts, we cleared to our people that there's no cause to panic.
All right, I think we're going to try and get back Mr. Umar Dada. We have you back, but please do clarify, Reverend. Is this directive strictly for Christian clerics, or does this also apply to Islamic clerics as well?
What happened was to address a particular situation, not even an entire state issue. Okay. It was like, oh, I, Reverend Hayab, I come not under any particular official platform, and I claim to be preaching, and instead of preaching, I'm instigating, not reading Bible, not preaching Christianity. And I'm being told that, okay, if I'm going to do this, of course, I have my freedom as a Nigerian to speak, but we need to know what you want to speak. You need to know what you want to say, since you are not, or you pass through our committee for them to know who you are. But as I've earlier cleared that there is nothing in Niger State House of Assembly as a bill to make every person present his sermon to them. No, there is nothing like that, or has been passed into law and signed by government. There is nothing like that. So we have to treat it in the context it is. Yes, I understand the fear. Oh, it is from this small beginning that they can make it big. But thank God we have taken it up, and the government says, no, we are not even going to do that because we understand the law, but we needed to correct that particular incident, and we took that measure to correct that incident. And if the people feel they need to, then they have to submit themselves either to the JNI or submit themselves to CAN if they were Christians, so that we know who they are and what they are preaching, instead of instigating people and cause problems.
Thank you, Reverend Joseph.
So, Mr. Umar, my question would be the same. What was your reaction when you heard that, you know, the Niger State has asked clerics to submit their sermon? What was your very first expression?
Okay, is that for me?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Umar.
Okay, thank you for having me, first of all. I may have to say that I thank the Reverend for bringing this information to me. It's the first time I'm hearing that this directive was particularly having to do with a group, not everybody. This is the first time I'm getting that impression. But the impression I got when I heard it is that it is meant for everybody. And that if any imam wants to deliver any sermon, he will have to submit the sermon to the government for them to agree with it, approve of it, before the person can deliver the sermon. This is what I understood when I heard it. And secondly, actually, the one I heard was, I saw the DG of Religious Affairs, I think that's what his designation is. Mr. Umar, he is also called Umar. I saw him with a group of imams, most of whom I recognize. And they were saying that they were coming out of a meeting, and that what they discussed there was that they were going to have to interview, that they will give forms, issue forms to preachers, that those forms will be filled, and then you will have to be certified before you will be qualified to preach to any group of people in the state. So the journalists asking him further said, what if the person just uses their phone at home and does this live streaming or something? He said that the law is going to cover such people too, that once anybody does that, they will arrest him if the person does not have their permit. So for the Reverend to now say that he was told that, no, it doesn't affect everybody, that's news to me now. And I thank him for bringing such news to me. Unfortunately, we are not as privileged as to be fed such exclusive news, you know, to have such clarification. But he is, I praise him for that, and it means he's highly elevated, even though he's not from this state. So it's surprising that not being from this state, he has more information than those of us who are in this state.
Okay.
And the reverse should have been the case. Since news came out like that, we're supposed to have been contacted and told that. But we just heard after a few people had the meeting. But alhamdulillah, it's okay. What actually we've been waiting for is the time that will be implemented. So we'll know exactly what the scope of the directive will be. We still haven't seen the form. We don't know where to obtain the form and all of that. Even though, wallahi, personally, I do not intend to go for such a form. Because like the Reverend said, I know that the law does not permit anybody to do that under the democratic dispensation. So the open letter that I wrote to the governor, what I advised
is that since people have been known to be preachers and people have been given the podium and all that, some people have the mimbar in the mosque to deliver Jumu'ah sermon. Some do the tafsir, the exegesis of the Quran and so on. They are known to do this. Just monitor such people, as government should always do. If anybody comes up with anything strange, then that particular person is quizzed. It is better than to just say, no, generally in this whole state, we have thousands of preachers. You say that every person must obtain a permit before they can preach, before he or she, because there are also female preachers, by the way, many of them also. I believe that that would be too much of a task for a government that already has so much in its hands. Our government is doing very well. We are quite supportive of our governor because for the first time in all the years that we've had democracy, we have a governor that seems to really genuinely care.
Mr. Umar.
And so we would have liked such government to concentrate more.
Now, just a second, Mr. Umar Dada.
Positively.
My apologies, sir. I had to cut in there because we are running out of time, but we still have a little time to discuss this. Now, you've noted something that the Reverend Joseph also, well, it's kind of like different information here. While we're talking about freedom of speech for clerics and freedom to practice religion, what about the fact that there seems to be miscommunication entwined in all of this? Whose responsibility is it that the clear information be passed to clerics so they understand and to stop it from vibrating in a different direction in society? Because that's what's happening now. And that in itself could cause problems if the information is not clear to the populace.
Of course, the problem has to be from the government. It's the government that has the sole responsibility of clearly, communicating with the people and making these things clear. So if you have such a misunderstanding, as mostly, of course, we have to blame the government. The government should accept blame in most of these things and then make amends. If you pass information that is misunderstood, it's now your business to clear the air and then make things clearer than they were before so that people will understand them better. And so, of course, the government has the duty of coming to say, like this information that the Reverend has now, I know that most clerics in the state, in Niger State, do not have this information that he was given now. So they have to do more in that regard to inform the people that, okay, this is not what they mean.
All right, thank you, sir.
I particularly mentioned that there was the case of a boy in Suleja that came and was engaging in some dangerous preaching. And the ulama brought him together, sat with him, and showed him they disagreed with his own line of thinking, and that he seemed to be dragging us back to the Boko Haram thing. And he was stopped from preaching in Niger State. But now you cannot stop somebody from preaching completely. Because if you say you stop the person from preaching in Niger State, if he goes to another state, or if he uses his phone, it's so difficult to do that. So there should have been better ways to actually, check the excesses of that boy before it gets beyond our powers. And so if you see people derailing like that, it's better that you tackle such people and solve the problem once and for all. If the person needs to be taken to court, take the person to court so that we'll check their excesses completely, not these half measures that are applied these days, because they end up leaving us with dangerous situations, which we should have controlled before the thing got as ugly as it would have gotten at any time. So that's what I advise.
Yes, thank you so much for joining and giving us that update. Now, my question is to Reverend Joseph. I'm sure that a lot of people watching now are getting a different clarity based on what you've just said, and Mr. Umar also mentioned that this is the first time he's hearing this information. So since you were privy to, speaking to the governor, I'm sure you would have been able to explain to him the misunderstanding that a lot of people are not sure what this law or bill that want to be passed is about. Did he tell you when they would, when the government is going to bring or come up with another a response to the citizens to say this is exactly what we mean? Because there's been a lot of controversies backing to when he talked about people with dreadlocks, and now we're talking about, clerics and their sermons. So did he give you a timeline as to when he will come out to say this is what we mean in Niger State and not what, the clerics are thinking? Mr. Reverend
I think
Joseph?
there's something seriously wrong with the way information is passed in Nigeria. Reverend Hayab, I was a victim of this kind of information some months ago. There was a particular day in Nigeria, almost all over the newspaper, a story was circulated that I gave a press statement to protect the son of the president. And as I'm speaking to you live on television now, I never discussed with one newspaper house. I never sent one story. Major newspaper, including television, I don't want to start mentioning them to ridicule them, discussed that story the next day. Nobody called me to find out whether what was said is true, is from me. But it became a big story all over. Look, it was trending all over the country. At the end of the day I started to tell people, I don't even know the story. Can one person tell me when I ever told him the story? They were shocked. So I'm a victim. I'm familiar with this. And when I met the governor, I confronted him. And he says that, sometimes the way things are in this country, people just want to tell stories without digging deep to know where the story is from. As long as the story would make big headlines, as long as the story will provoke people to anger. But as I'm sitting down talking to you now, I deliberately have forwarded the press statement from the Director General to the person who contacted me to appear on your program, Collins. I have also forwarded to him the photo of my engagement with the governor when we were having that conversation, because fortunately for us, the cameraman was there and picked us. Because I think Nigerians must grow to see and know which story is true, not because one newspaper say it or because CNN repeated it 10 times, then it is true. Mm-hmm. There is sensitivity about religious, and you know how it is, that when it comes out, it will spark anger, it will spark problem. Sometimes I understand what Malam is saying. The trouble is that we want to go for the story we want, not every story, and we want to know the details of it. I have told you what I did. I heard about the story and I was troubled, but I didn't want to just make statements out of anger. So I called the chairman of CAN, the Bishop of Kontagora Catholic Diocese. I called the vice chairman of CAN, who is the pastor of United Methodist Evangelical Missionary Church. Then I called other people. Then I called government spokesperson. Then I met the governor. You can see the stages I took to understand. I engaged the Director General, and I have his press statement, and I've just shared with your colleague there to show that, let me find out what exactly was the matter. And I want to read something he said in the statement. He said, the attention of the Niger State Bureau for Religious Affairs has been drawn to misleading reports circulating on various social media platforms and print media that Niger State Bureau for Religious Affairs has banned preaching in the state, falsely claiming that the Bureau has suspended Islamic scholars and clerics from preaching in the state. This information is incorrect and amount to misinformation. I want to stop here. So you see, we must go further to dig stories. And that's why we accept to do interview with you, so that the one we don't understand, we ask questions. The one we understand, we clear. I have a responsibility as a Nigerian to ensure that anything that would trigger violence will further create confusion, I correct it or I raise my concern about it. Okay. What I don't want to do is to start helping people to say stories that are not true just because someone said it. I told you, not somebody. A story one night in Nigeria, it was trending. Millions of Nigerians were looking at me as if I know the story, but right. Nobody asked me. Reverend I never know the story. So I'm familiar with this in this country.
Okay. Well, Reverend Joseph, we want to thank you and Malam Umar Dada for a very interesting session here, because with the details that you have shared, there seems to be, it's clear that there is miscommunication in Niger State, and there is an office that seems not to be doing its job, because that information you've just read to us should be out there so that it doesn't cause rancor in society. We want to say thank you very much for having this conversation with us and choosing to accept our invitation on the show here today. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We do appreciate your presence.
Thank you for having me. I actually accept to come. I'm supposed to be preaching in church because of the subject. I wanted to really let Nigeria know that there's a misinformation out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.